Welcome to Making the Difference, the True North Conversations, powered by the purpose-led independent law firm, Brabner's. I'm Michael Hayman, and over the course of 6 episodes, I'll be speaking to entrepreneurs and business leaders from across the North, each providing incredible insights, stories, and a commitment to people, communities, and the Northern economy. It's bold ideas for change, from a constellation of Northern stars, doing things differently and making the difference. With me today is Dr. Ed Lynch, a practicing A&E physician who's gone from the NHS frontline to the frontline of entrepreneurship with the Wellbeing doctors. Ed, welcome to the True North Conversations. Great to see you. We've spoken before about Healthy, your business, brilliant story. Pick it up for us. Let's help sort of frame it for our viewers in terms of the business and the entrepreneur.
So it was started out in 22. I'd worked in the NHS for a few years at that point, and there were just so many issues. So I'd worked in ICU over COVID and then emergency departments in the North, and I was just getting fed up of seeing the same thing time and time again, which was chronic disease hitting people. And it was quite difficult because they didn't necessarily want to live that way. You know, they'd come in with something acute like a heart attack or a stroke, and it was disease that had been accumulated over 30, 40 years. And it's the same story every time. And people don't want that to happen, but it kind of perniciously happens over years. And then they come in with something acute. So I thought, I'd like to do something about this. And that was kind of the underpinnings of what Healthy is about, which is trying to prevent the build-up of chronic disease, essentially.
Okay, I want to track back to some of the points you've made there, but just in a nutshell then, in terms of the actual Healthy business offer, tell us a little bit about what the business actually does.
Sure.
And how it helps.
Sure. So it's essentially longevity medicine. So we work one-to-one with people to improve their overall lifestyles, to prevent chronic disease, but also to optimize their health. So it's about increasing health span and increasing lifespan.
Right.
Our route to market is through the corporate world. So businesses will pay for private medical, and then that will fund our activity in a workplace. And we work one-to-one with the staff members.
So are you doing the diagnostics and the delivery of the sort of, I guess, the actions and the recourse?
And they can track everything through our longevity platform that we've built, which is the most sophisticated in the UK currently.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really interesting backstory, though. I mean, you know, starting your career in the NHS, starting as a doctor. I mean, in terms of when you hear a lot of entrepreneurial stories, you wouldn't necessarily say those are two vital ingredients that would sort of, you'd necessarily jump and say, well, actually, that's an entrepreneur in the making.
Yeah.
But clearly, you've chosen business as the tool to address an issue that means a lot to you. Were there frustrations along the way that got you to the fact of actually there must be another way of doing this, or was it more there's opportunity here and I could do something in a different way?
Yeah, I think both.
Right.
The NHS is, and rightly so, very tightly governed. So the opportunity within the NHS to innovate is difficult because they have so much compliance, and the way the procurement works in the NHS is each trust kind of funds its own activity as well, due to this kind of devolved setup that there is. So it makes it very difficult to innovate in the NHS, and they are trying to solve that through NHS Clinical Entrepreneur Programme. There's loads of medics going through that programme to try and bring their entrepreneurial side into the NHS, but it still makes it very, very difficult. The opportunity really is that what we're doing kind of crosses over from the NHS world, but also into the health and wellbeing space. And the health and wellbeing space currently is being done very badly by lots and lots of people. I give examples all the time around supplement companies. You know, people getting advertised stuff on Instagram that they definitely should not be taking, but people are buying it and lapping it up because people fundamentally want to be healthy, but they don't know what to do. So there's lots of issues where the NHS primarily was set up to treat disease, but we're in a position now where we've got a very unhealthy population, and the way out of this is to create good health in the population.
I suppose what I'm thinking about is taking Ed back pre, the sort of 2022 startup phase, in terms of an environment where actually business, the NHS and business is the oil and water, isn't it? It's not seen as necessarily the easiest of partners in terms of the way that progress is made. I mean, I'm sort of wondering what the kind of light bulb moment was for you where you thought, actually, I need to move out of, I guess, established medicine, the established way of doing things, and move into a more entrepreneurial setting.
Yeah, I think it is those limitations that are set by the NHS. That makes it very difficult to do anything entrepreneurial, unfortunately. But also, it's that constantly seeing the same thing happen over and over again and nobody doing anything about it. So seeing patients in A&E, heart attack after heart attack after heart attack, and nothing's getting done about it.
Right.
So I had a patient that came up to me one day who had a heart attack and said, why has this happened? I didn't realise this was going to happen. And at that point, I was like, we've got to do something about this.
We'll come back into the sort of like the day job, but I suppose what I'm looking at here also is the entrepreneur in you, in terms of actually somebody that's building a business out of this. Because I suppose what you've taken is a life's calling, and you're using business to address the issue. What gave you the faith, the belief that actually a for-profit business might be a way of making a real contribution to an issue that clearly drives you?
Yeah, I didn't even think about it, to be honest. It just seemed like the natural thing to do.
Do you relate to the word entrepreneur? Do you see yourself in that term?
Maybe. I guess what I am doing is entrepreneurial.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah, I used to sell sweets at school, so maybe does that count? But I think it's always
you want a healthy life, I don't think.
No, no, definitely not. I think it's always been in me, to do something a bit more out there.
Yeah.
But it's also that freedom element of like, you can literally do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And if there's a problem there, you can actually solve it.
Yeah.
What frustrates me massively about, I still work in the NHS tiny bits, but what is frustrating is that you see a problem and you can't fix it.
Right.
And you're powerless to fix that issue. And it'd be so easy to fix it. You're like, can we just do this thing?
What do your friends and family who've seen that journey, what do they make of it in terms of the kind of like because if you go for a career in the NHS, that is usually that's a for life decision, that actually you're in a vocation and that's kind of where you're going to be. You've pivoted, right? And I wonder what the people that were part of that previous life make of Ed the entrepreneur.
Oh, huge backlash.
Right.
Massive backlash.
Explain that to us.
Family and friends. Right. Just saying, what if it doesn't work? You're pumping all your energy into this thing and it's, it's high risk. And
so risk is, right.
Risk and stability and, you're not paying yourself. I didn't pay myself for 5 years nearly because, the idea had been coming in for years. And so there's a thing about risk, but then also around, what are you doing? Stay in your lane, just go and do, sit along those trenches, go into a training program and just become a normal doctor, or if you like. But that was never my calling. But so, certainly from friends and close family, my mum especially was saying, let's have a stable life here.
Right. That strikes me as being quite often a familiar challenge that a lot of entrepreneurs face right in that pre-startup phase, which is kind of like, actually, the decision to go for it is often accompanied by a lot of cultural, I suppose, consideration in terms of actually, how do you approach the issue of risk?
Yeah. Initially, when I started it, that was not even on my mind. I was like, let's just go.
Go. Right.
Yeah, it wasn't even on my brain at all. There's been tough times, naturally. So at that point, I have sat down with myself and gone, is this the right thing to do?
Is this the right thing? Yeah, and I imagine, because also it's a very high-pressured environment in the sense that if you're not making impact for the community that you're serving, it's pretty sort of one or the other, isn't it? You're right. If you're winning or you're not. So let's talk about the journey of scale. Actually, how you've taken the business forward from being an idea to actually being out there doing things. How's the journey been, and how's the business developed?
So, ups and downs, as you would expect. We accidentally landed on a contract with a company called CBRE, who are a facilities management firm, and they rent out offices to other businesses.
Right.
So by accident.
When you say by accident, would you just met them on
I was in a coffee shop,
right?
And somebody made an introduction, be like, "Oh, you should speak," because they were trying to improve the health and well-being of their buildings. So they said, "Oh, you speak to Ed." So I met up with the lady there and loved what we did and what we're about, and then said, oh, could you try this? And then the thing that they wanted us to try has now become the kind of cornerstone of what we offer businesses. So we didn't actually make our own product, they came up with it.
So I suppose that's either serendipity or the fact that you're alive to the fact that there are situations all around you. I mean, was it just good luck, do you think? Or do you think you were just...
A bit of both.
Right.
A bit of both. I always believe you make your own luck. You know, the amount of times we've been in the right place at the right time, but it's been years of groundwork to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
So, and we'll always grab opportunity if it's there, provided it's in line with the ethos.
Yeah.
So I think it's a bit of both. There's of course luck, but you have to have the good foundation there to actually deliver on.
Well, there's that good old sports adage, isn't there? The more I practice, the luckier I get. You know, which is kind of like, I suppose. So you've been honing that business message. You've been networking. I mean, in terms of your ambition for the business, I mean, this is part of a massive social question for the UK in terms of actually lifestyle, well-being, lifespans. You know, you fit into a complex series of social, I suppose, questions and health questions. In terms of where this business could go, what do you have a sense of the ambition for it, or is this just more of an iterative journey, do you think?
I do have a sense for it. I think it's the same as every founder, where it's potentially unrealistic, but I want to take it global because we're already servicing most of the UK, and it's reasonable to assume that within 5 years we could hit our goal of taking it across Europe and also globally, because it's tech. You know, we've built an unbelievable foundational tech, and the scale is unlimited. If we've got 1 million clients or 10 clients, it's the same software. So it doesn't matter. So I think for me, I do want to take it globally. I
think there's something about a lot of entrepreneurs is that ambition by its nature needs to be unreasonable. I mean, if it's reasonable and easy to make sense of, it's not necessarily the goal that's going to drive you forward. So, and I mean, and that's another reason why, you know, entrepreneurs tend to be such driven human beings, is because they're trying to get somewhere better, faster, cheaper than their alternatives, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and the analogy I give all the time to friends is like, when you go to football and you watch the game, when a goal goes in, what other periods of your life do you celebrate like that?
Yeah.
Whereas in the business, that actually happens.
Yeah.
You know, you get something in and you're like, you know,
it's a win, it's a goal,
mad. You know, it's
3
great.
points.
Yeah. Whereas I don't know many other careers that I could be in that you can celebrate like that. Obviously, there's downs.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you concede a goal, then there's downs.
And I want to go into the downs because, I mean, you mentioned those a couple of times. I mean, a lot of people assume that the entrepreneurial journey goes from one gilded height to the next.
Yeah.
And yet, obviously, there are huge troughs in that experience. And, you know, I always remember Charles Dunstan, who was the Carphone Warehouse founder. He said that he wanted his gravestone to say, "I got away with it," right? You know, that actually, because he faced so many ups and downs in that entrepreneurial journey. I mean, tell us about the downs. I mean, tell us about, you know, what have been the biggest challenges?
Right. I mean, it's been tough. There's been all sorts of stuff, because when you start out, you don't know anything.
Right. And is it only experience where you're learning, or do you find other ways of?
I try to predict it more and like read ahead of time, but until you're in the thick of it, it's all academic and how to actually condone yourself and behave and make the right decisions at the right time. I think you only get that with experience, but also a lot of it's soft skills. So initially when we hired, we were thinking, oh, you know, how are we going to find the right person? And we obviously sought advice and found people who've done it before. And I definitely wouldn't do it that way now. And a lot of it for me is like energy and how you get on with that individual, and less about, because I hired based on skill originally, and now it's more on tenacity.
Tenacity,
you
right.
know, if I'm looking at somebody, if you've got the right energy and you're going to come in and be like, and you're going to grind, they can learn anything.
But I suppose I'm sort of thinking, listening to you speak, Ed, it's like, you know, there's a lot of this which is kind of like a sense of, well, we've learned through experience, we've learned through mistakes, we've learned through a whole load of things where you think, well, actually, surely somebody else's experience should be a major part of what gets early stage businesses to the next stage more fluidly. I mean, I've just chaired a program called Help to Grow, which is very much about that. But it feels like there's real cost here, a consequence, isn't there, in terms of that journey. Tell us about the local setting of the business. Tell us about, you know, about I suppose the northern aspect in terms of what it means to you personally.
I of course want to help the people in our city region, because we've got a very deprived group of people here. And I think
and just for the sake of this, we talk about the Liverpool City region here today, which is where we are today. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because they have the same issue in the NHS here, where we actually, there's a bit of a postcode lottery around when you go to a GP and your blood's taken. The cut-off reference ranges for bloods changes depending on where you are in the country, because our population's so unhealthy here. The reference range is different here to the way it is in Kensington and London.
Yeah.
So there's so many challenges around the north-south divide. There is a poorer population here. The health's quite bad, and I do want to try and help the people around, in the Liverpool City region. But I think that there's huge opportunity here. There's more funding coming into the area.
I was going to ask that, so I suppose you get a sense of vivid social mission in terms of what you're looking at. But on this issue of opportunity, though, in terms, sorry, I would cut you off on the point about the funding, but I mean, so the funding's coming, you think?
It's been there for a few years. I think pre-2020 there wasn't lots of it that I was aware of, but more and more is coming through, and I think there's a new £40 million budget that's just been released that's coming into Liverpool City region to help. I think it's for larger organisations than us, but I think it's about the collaboration between NHS trusts and academia, about how we can try and solve some health issues in the region. So there's a lot more funding coming into the area, and we do recognise that there are problems to solve.
Do you get a sense that some of the support structures you've mentioned in terms of actually how do you actually avoid some of the sort of, like, I suppose, some of the potholes of actually that experience can provide for you? Do you think that kind of mentoring network, that kind of, is that something you ever come across? Is it something you even want? How does that work in a kind of northern context?
So we've had a lot of mentorship. Some of it's been incredible, some of it's not been helpful at all. And we're now working closely with an organisation who just do mentorship, like consulting for businesses, and they're incredible. Advice we do have to take with a pinch of salt, because ultimately, unless you've scaled a tech company, we want to surpass 100 million and beyond. How many other organisations have done that in our niche?
Yeah.
Very few.
Yeah.
And when we're taking advice from people, not many people have done what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So, the advice, some of the advice is great, but equally, there's no blueprint to follow.
Yeah, and I think this is the thing, when you're a category creator. Actually, you're creating something which is coming out of the very particular circumstances of living now, right? And actually being here right now, and actually where you draw on your learnings from is a really important part. Is that something that is done better elsewhere, do you think, in terms of, is that a question of clustering or ambition or policy? Are there other factors at play? And I'm sort of thinking about how the kind of northern ecosystem shows up in a kind of national and potentially international scale.
Yeah, I think you guys are doing a great job of showcasing some of the talent that we have here. But I think when we look globally, tech is, specifically to our business, we're competing with tech, and there's no borders to tech, so it's global. So then we initially looked to Silicon Valley, and what they're doing out there is just incredible. And the support, the funding, they've got Y Combinator, and they've got these. How would you compete with that? Yeah. So unless you've got huge investors, I don't know. I think in the UK we are at a disadvantage. London less so, because there's a lot more funding in London.
It's a sort of thing where you think about the actual ideas are clearly there. There are over, I think, about 850,000 business registrations every year, of which, I always think about those as each one is a kind of like, it's a bit of a dream, isn't it? That actually, okay, there's lots of different reasons why you register a company, but for a vast number of them, it's the kind of idea, well, actually, this is my side hustle. It might be my hope. But actually, when you then look at scale, that's where it all falls away, that journey from startup to scale. And I suppose if you look at the conditions for scale for your business, you're talking about building a world beater, and you're talking about building it here.
Yeah.
For people watching this, in terms of what you need to achieve that, to set the conditions for success, what's the message?
What are the next steps for us?
Yeah, but also, what's the help you need? What gives you a ladder to climb?
So your challenges change. There's an interesting thing called the triple chasm, and they look at all of the different types of business vectors. They get you through to the next stage. So chasm 2 notoriously is where like 90% of businesses fail. So if you can get through chasm 2, the ones that make it past that are the ones who will go on to 100 plus million. So it's interesting to see, and they will say which vectors you need at what point. So that's a super interesting analysis.
I once had an entrepreneur call that the valley of death. I mean, it is that thing where so many businesses fall away, and actually good businesses, and they scale. I mean, it's really interesting for me to hear the answer to this last question, because I think your journey is so nuanced, because you've had this experience of working within the state, how the state views the provision of medicine and the treatment of disease. You've chosen to go down the path less trodden in terms of actually building a business. So we're looking at, I mean, you're one of our Northern Stars, and of course, the whole idea about a true north is a personal journey, not just a healthy journey in terms of the business, but actually Ed's journey. And I think, would be good to sort of like finish on your sense of where this is taking you, not only as an entrepreneur, but somebody who is clearly driven by the issues of health of a nation, global health, actually, and one of the people that might just be able to do something about it.
We will not stop. This is a lifelong mission, and we will not stop until we can try and improve the lifestyle health of every single individual we can get in front of. So hopefully we can travel the world and help as many people along the way. That is ultimately what we're doing here.
Yeah.
In order to create good health. So we can treat disease along the way, but if we can optimize their health, then that is the mission, and travel everywhere and get it into as many people's pockets as possible.
Brilliant answer. I've got to say, I mean, it's a wonderful story to hear, Ed, and thank you so much for joining us on the True North Conversations. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.